Hello and welcome to the News Review program. I am Fatou Kamara. I don't even know why I'm here because Omar is supposed to be presenting, but last minute I have to be on here. And we would start with the Standard newspaper. Of course, it has a story on My Fati. My Fati defends ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, against U.S. attack. That's on the Standard newspaper. And right here, they are saying that the leader of the Gambia Moral Congress has put up a robust defense against state threatening the International Criminal Court. The United States Tuesday launched a blistering verbal attack on the International Criminal Court ICC and threatened sanctions against the judges if they proceed with a probe into the alleged war crimes by Americans in Afghanistan. Omar Wali and I will talk about that later. We will go into details. And government announces payback to avoid teachers' strike. If you're following the news, there was information that the teachers want to go on a strike, and the government, according to the Standard newspaper, have a payback to avoid this strike. And Prince blast Janet Commission for short notice. That's also on there. And the Prince is no other than Ibrahim Sanyang, the managing director of the Royal Africa Holding, who, according to the Standard, was called to testify at the Janet Commission yesterday. He has responded to the commission saying it is impossible for him to honor their invitation yesterday. He's basing it on the fact that the notice, according to him, was very short. And Gambia can only heal if, and that's why the Deputy Chairperson nominee for the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, Adelaide Sose, who was speaking at an event right there. And of course, the Foreign newspaper has the Faraba Banta victim, narrates his words. That's also on there. New regime marred by strikes. That's on the paper as well. And Gerending quits APRC. And I guess he's following the footsteps of your friend, M.A. Ba. And that is also on for a newspaper. Anthony Blair shows support of President Barrow. This is everything that's been out there in the news since yesterday. And VP sheds light on the 4.5 million donated to Kunta War food victims, the flood victims. That has been there has been a lot of questions about that. Where did the money go? What use has it been put into? The Vice President of the Gambia, lawyer Usainu Dabo, shed light on that, according to the Point newspaper. And Tony Blair, of course, is on the paper again. Tony Blair says President Barrow is clear about his priorities. There has been a lot of criticism following Tony Blair's visit to the Gambia. The Fatu Network is working on some interviews trying to find out what exactly is he doing here, because there's been a lot of talk that he's here because of the oil that is in the country. And Bungalow Beach Hotel proprietor faces Janet Commission is also on the Point newspaper. Transport Ministry to construct 400 kilometers of rural roads. That's also there with the photo of Bailamin Job, the minister. And of course, the Voice newspaper has President Barrow clear about his priorities, and that's Tony Blair. And URR UDP chairman rubbishes Barrow Youth Movement to them. But did you see the new Barrow Youth Movement? We'll talk about that later. And Upper Nomi demands tar roads and others. And of course, on the Daily News, the Daily newspaper again has Tony Blair makes case for Barrow's priorities. APRC wants ECOMIC out of the Gambia. I want to talk to Omar Wali about that. Why do you think they want ECOMIC out of the Gambia? Zero tolerance against corruption. That's by my MP, Honorable Bakari Kamara. He is the MP for Kiang Central. That's all in the newspapers. Thank you very much. I am Fatou Kamara, and of course, Omar Wali is right here. So Omar Wali, the Standard newspaper has this lead story with the former Interior Minister Mai Ahmed Fati defending the ICC. What do you read out of that? Because there are a lot of talk around that the ICC is actually for Africans.
Yes, like Kofi Annan said, it is impunity and an individual who are on trial at the ICC, not Africans. Mm-hmm. You know, ICC is an organization that's set to defend the right of victims of bad leadership. But of recent, when Charles Taylor and other Africans, like the Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, his Vice President William Ruto, Charles Bile Gude, Simon Bagbo, Laurent Gbagbo.
See, that's why they call you an expert in East Africa. Yes, yes, go on. Yes.
So when that happened, people were like, it is the ICC is only after Africans. Particularly Omar al-Bashir, the Sudanese president, was also indicted because he's accused of backing the Janjaweeds. That's where the militants who were killing the people in South Sudan. So, but quite often during Luis Moreno Ocampo's time, up to the time of Fatou Bensouda, they have been saying this, but Africans, or people still said it is only Africans. For example, when you talk about the ICC, they will be like, where is George Bush? Where is Tony Blair?
Exactly, the two names keep coming, yeah.
Yeah, but fail to realize that the United States is not a signatory to the ICC.
Yes.
And you look at some of these people before the ICC. Let's go to East Africa. Let's start in Kenya. There was post-election violence in 2007. The court indicted 4 people. Joshua Arap Sang is a journalist working in one of the radios. Uhuru Kenyatta was indicted. William Ruto and 2 other people were indicted. And later the court said they did not have a sufficient evidence against those people. Partly we can say President Uhuru Kenyatta and this Vice President are off the hook. You go to Democratic Republic of Congo, you have Bosco Ntaganda. He was a lieutenant to the former rebel leader there, Laurent Kunda. He handed himself to the U.S. Embassy and he was later transferred to the ICC. His crimes includes enlisting children into the military and conscripting people into the, not into the military, but into the rebel force. You move to the, in Uganda, the Lord Resistance Army of Joseph Kony. He was indicted with most of his lieutenants. Some of them were killed. Some of them died in a combatant, like Vincent Oti. But when one of them, with Dominic Ongwen, some said he was 9, some said he was 10 years, some said he was 14 years. He was going to school. He was kidnapped by the LRA. He was then conscripted into the Lord Resistance Army. And later on, he became a commander and he fell out with the Lord Resistance Army leader, Joseph Kony, for not listening to his radio message. He later handed him over to the Seleka rebels in Central African Republic. You know, that was when Francois Bozize was toppled. There was this Seleka anti-Balaka, and he handed himself, and later he was transferred to the ICC. And who else? But Fatou Bensouda once told BBC that they have preliminary analysis in South Korea, in Colombia. You know where the FARC rebels are. You have Radovan Karadzic, who was also before the International Criminal Court for crimes for the Bosnian Serb, the former Bosnian Serb leader. So there are a whole lot.
So what do you believe that? Oh, do you believe that the ICC would not go after? You did say that America is not a signatory to the ICC, of course, and I think that's the case with Equatorial Guinea as well. I guess that is the reason why Jammeh decided to go there as well.
Well, that is one thing. You look at Africa here. It is, for example, even Ivory Coast alone, they indicted 3 people. But these are not after African people. They are after individuals and impunity, like Kofi Annan said. There was election in Ivory Coast. Laurent Gbagbo lost election. He refused to step aside. You have the firebrand youth leader, Charles Blegude. His brother-in-law was indicted. Simon Gbagbo was indicted. So you know they are not after individuals. Kenya, there was post-election violence. In Sudan,
okay, you said they're not after individuals.
No, they are not. They are after individuals, not and impunity, not individual Africans.
Yeah, but that is why many are arguing that somebody like Tony Blair and George Bush should also.
Yes, that is it. But they will tell you that the United States is not a signatory to the ICC.
But again, it's those 2 people. Yes. Well, that's going to be a long debate. And, you know, I have this feeling that maybe that is why Jammeh did not even want to stop in Guinea. I think the flight was actually, it left Banjul and it went to Guinea, and from Guinea to Equatorial Guinea. I think he was insisting that he goes to Equatorial Guinea on the same night. He didn't want to take any chances. And I know they were after Bashir. What happened with that? I know he decided not to go. He didn't want to travel those days. Do you know how that ended?
No, the charges are still hanging on his head.
So they didn't get him.
This, because what happened, there was this war in, he was indicted for crimes against humanity and extermination. There are these people there on a horseback. They are called the Janjaweed. So they will come and kill these people in other parts of the Sudan, the southern parts. So he was accused of that. But there were other rebels leaders also who were accused of other crimes, like the commanders of Janjaweed, and you have other rebel. There were many factions. And this is not only a war. People commit, because the reason why the United States is saying this, the ICC is saying in the 17 years of U.S. presence in Afghanistan, they committed some human rights violations. But again, America said to be the world's policeman, but they violated some of the rights of people during those wars in trying to hunt down Osama bin Laden, in fighting the Taliban and other jihadists, the Haqqani network, you name them, in that part of the world, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and so on.
Well, we've also seen in the newspaper on the daily news that APRC wants ECOMIC out of Gambia. I mean, I read about them complaining that the villagers in Kanila are not very comfortable having all these soldiers around them. Is that the same reason? Do you know why they want them out of the Gambia?
Well, from the press conference which was published, I think it was on Monday, the Fabakari said Gambia cannot rely entirely on this ECOMIC. But I don't think that should be an issue here. Because there was a reason why these people came. Like I interviewed my father, he once told me, ECOMIC will not be in this country if Jammeh had finally hand over power peacefully. But it will...
Because they're not in Freetown and they had elections.
Yeah, and so on. You know, Gambians are in other parts of the world on peacekeeping mission. We have been to Liberia, we've been to Sierra Leone, we've been to East Timor, and our soldiers are still present in South Sudan. So I don't think that is a genuine argument.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate because right now, as it is, you spoke to Dr. Sen yesterday, and he did talk about the security situation of the country. He mentioned how, when it comes to personal security, why the president should make it a priority because it's not very secure in the Gambia. So if the APRC is saying that they want ECOMIC out, that's kind of scary, definitely. And then my MP is saying that zero corruption, and that's very, very good, zero tolerance for corruption in the Gambia. And about the Tony Blair issue, that's also a huge debate on social media because a lot of people are asking questions why he has to come to Gambia. Because whatever he's doing for President Barrow, according to comments on social media, these are things that Gambians can do it for him. But I don't know. I mean, did you pick up anything about that issue? Some are saying he's here for oil. Some are saying the wife is a lawyer and deals with petrol and gas. Maybe that is the reason why he's here. And somebody actually mentioned a company called Tula Oil that the wife works with. And they're thinking that maybe that's the same company that they're trying to follow to Gambia. And I did find out from Ministry of Energy officials, and it's also on their website, that company is one of the 10 companies shortlisted for oil drilling in the Gambia.
You know, when they talk about oil in the Gambia, sometimes it baffles me. How much oil do we have?
Yes.
Even if Gambia should start drilling oil today, look at Nigeria, you look at Algeria, you look at even Saudi Arabia, Vietnam. These are the leading exporters of oil. So most of the people are just issuing or saying their personal opinion. But it's only Tony Blair who can tell us why his wife or he is here. Somebody told me he secured over $1 million US for Rwanda. And you know Rwanda, despite President Kagame being accused of human rights violations, is one of the emerging countries in Africa. They have this cleanest city, although he will go way out to hunt his opponent. So, but this one, I think we will do more research and do more investigation to know the bottom why Tony Blair.
Yes, and we promised some interviews. Hopefully very soon we will have those interviews, and we will let the Gambians know, because there are a lot of questions, especially when it comes to this oil issue. A lot of questions are unanswered that the public wants to know about, but we schedule interviews and we're waiting for them to get back to us. And once we have that, we will let you all know. I
think we also be talking to Papa Yusfanjai, the CEO of Unique Solution. We'll be talking about the Forbes rank Gambia as the worst country to do business in Africa. Out of 53 countries, Gambia is 52 in front of only Chad. So if we have him on the line, we will have a discussion with him. What are these problems, the hurdles of doing business, registration? And I spoke to somebody, he told me about the corruption is one thing, bureaucracy is one thing, government policies are all contributing factors. That's why it's very difficult for investors to come to Gambia to do business. Hello?
Corruption is one thing, bureaucracy is one thing, government.
Hello? Mr. Njai, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the Fatu Network News Review.
Thank you very much. It's good to be on.
Well, viewers, We are here joined by, on the line from the United States, by Papa Njai, the Chief Executive Officer of the Unique Solution. We'll be talking about the Forbes report, 2018 report, where it ranks Gambia 152, excuse me, out of, Gambia is 52 out of the 53 countries. Yeah. So, Mr. Njaya, I'm sure you have gone through the report. What do you make of this?
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Fatu. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor and pleasure to be on. I mean, it's a very important question you've asked me.
Yes.
I mean, I want to believe that this is nothing new. Mm-hmm. If you looked at the last doing business index of the World Bank, you know, we were in a similar position. Of course, this year we are one position worse. So my take is, it is something we know, and it is something that, you know, we need to do something about. I think in Gambia's situation, I keep saying that we are challenged with more problems than solutions. So my optimistic nature tells me that this is a wake-up call. At least media groups like yours, and you know, it's been carried right across the international media. I left Beijing 2 days ago. So most of the people you have met and exchange cards are actually sending you the stories that this is how your country is. So for me, I want to look at it in a very positive light, that it is better to know where you are than to have a feeling that you are somewhere that you are not. So the business community is aware. The Chamber of Commerce has put position papers on how to do better in terms of the doing business index, putting across a PPP task force to look at various areas. I'm sure we'll talk about specifics, but I want to believe that, back to your question, I want to believe that, you know, this is something that we all knew. It is being magnified now. So hopefully it's an opportunity to do something about it.
Now, you mentioned the World Bank report, and the report, World Bank 2018 report, said out of 190 countries, Gambia is ranked at 146, which means, like you said, from bad to worse. You have a business in this country, you employ people. What are what are some of the challenges investors face in this country if they want to start a business?
Fantastic question. You know, I keep saying that we have all survived a dictatorship in many different degrees. I mean, people have lost their lives. Some people have sacrificed being away from the Gambia. Some have lost property. You know, so I always put a context in terms of what we do as businessmen. As you rightly say, the unique group of companies have been around for the last 18 years. You know, so we have managed to survive a dictatorship. And I want to believe that as a businessman and a member of the business community, I always say that we owe it to the people who've lost their lives. We owe it to the people who've lost their properties, people who are living with us but are not as healthy as they should be for obvious reasons. I want to believe that it is those people that we represent as businessmen in terms of changing things for their children and themselves by creating jobs, I mean, paying taxes and doing things that really will see us survive, not survive, we've survived the dictatorship, but actually, I always say, if we survive the dictatorship, we should be able to thrive in a democracy. And you've seen some of these indexes that doing business use. Talk about press freedom, talks about personal freedom, talks about business freedom. Are you allowed to move your money? You know, things of that sort. But back to your question, specifically, you know, we are on the ground, not only in Gambia, but several African countries. So we can tell you what is entailed in some of these African countries and ours. You've mentioned Rwanda. My chairman, Abdoulaye Toure, always says that before Rwanda's genocide, you know, I mean, we had a higher GDP than them. And it took a genocide in Rwanda. You know, we all understood what went there to leap from Gambia into what they have today. We are on $500 GDP per capita. I mean, inflation is 7-point-something%. We have underemployment. We have unemployment. I mean, growth rates are single digits, 2-point-something. So it tells you that, you know, things are not Okay, we all knew that. Now, specifically, as you said, what are the challenges and what are the solutions? I want to believe that being on the ground over the past 18 years, one of the biggest challenges that the Gambian businessman faces is the issue of government borrowing, in the sense that the private sector investment levels were always very low because we were competing with government. Let me explain. If you realize, when it comes to interest rates, government was always borrowing, spending so much money. So that crowded out the private sector market in terms of taking loans to invest. So quite clearly, interest rates, I mean, when I started business 18, 19 years ago, I was borrowing at 28, 29%. Yeah. And jokingly, I would say that I was working for the bank. So in the capital markets, interest rates were always very high because the government was borrowing a lot and misusing the money, as we all seeing in the commission today. So I want to believe that the biggest challenges at that time was the issue of government borrowing, interest rate high, so private sector could not take good quality loans from the banks. So you can see that in the last year and a half, there has been some improvement in that, but there are still challenges. The interest rates are down to 17, 18%. That's still high. Some African countries, you can get loans at 7, 8, 9%. And of course, the banks, I am the chairman of Access Bank.
Yeah.
And the banks also don't have credible people to lend to. When I say credible people, is that the Mortgage Act needs to be changed.
Okay, let me interrupt you there. When you talk to people on the ground, they will tell you 22 years of dictatorship. Should we continue blaming 22 years? At least Barrow has been here for nearly 2 years.
Not at all. That's why I think I led with my statement that, we need to bring solutions to the table. And I think if you look at the Doing Business Index, the reason why I'm talking to you, you see, most of the countries that have really leapfrogged or have done well is based on reforms. You are judged by the reforms you are doing. That's how Doing Business Index is calculated. And for Gambia, I'll be honest with you that, we have a series of reforms that need to be carried out. So the issue of 22 years is just that. But our challenge right now as a private sector, working with the government, is to actually carry out these reforms. And the reforms are very, very slow. And I think that's been the challenge. Like I said, last year we were 145, I think.
Yeah.
This year we 146. So it tells you that not enough reforms are being done. I can be specific. One of the reforms I keep talking about.
Yes.
You might wonder why a private sector operator is worried about public sector reform. But quite clearly, if you look at the reason why we are in our situation today, it tells you that in the old regime, the public sector was bloated. If you look at the commission, most of the problems emanate from the public sector, whether it's Social Security, whether it's NAWEC, whether it's GAMTEL. These were public enterprises, bloated, not being managed well, overstaffed. I mean, I was an engineer at NAWEC probably 20 years ago when I came home.
Yeah.
I mean, the staff capacity at that time was 800 people. Today is above 2,000. So until these public enterprises are not reformed well, they will continue to be a burden on government. Civil service reform. I always say that if you are a public sector servant, you will always find your way in the private sector. You were once a private sector servant before. So we are saying that the civil service sector reform needs to be done very quickly, because these decisions of investment, foreign direct investment, local investment, and decision making, policy making are done by civil servants. So if you have a non-functional civil service, as we do now, it means that these are the challenges that we continue to face. So the private sector also needs a high-quality civil service sector reform. And I know your audience involves the diaspora, and I keep saying it. When you look at World Bank or ADB statistics, it tells you that we have the highest number of qualified people working per capita, working in these international agencies. When you travel around, which I do, every place you go to, you are proud that you have Gambians working there. We need to translate that on the ground. We don't lack capacity. The problem is the capacity is not on the ground, and it is only through civil service sector reform, that you have the best of Gambia working with the private sector to make sure that, you know, these indices that we're talking about improve. There is no magic wand. If we want to do better next year, it means that we have to do tax reform, we have to do civil service sector reform, we have to inject capital in the economy. The banking rules need to be better for people to be able to take loans from banks. Yeah. You know, so land reform. I know of many investors who want to invest in the tourism sector, but getting access to land is a huge challenge. So I think some of these things need to be done. As I'm speaking to you, there is a lobby from the private sector with the National Assembly, because we believe that some of these things are national laws that need to be changed. You know, regulatory laws in my sector of telecom, for example, where the gateway should be liberalized. I mean, it hasn't been. It's being done, but it's very slow. So we've engaged at the Chamber of Commerce. There is a private sector group that has begun engaging the National Assembly. It's still early days, but I want to believe that the National Assembly of the day is a National Assembly that is also concerned about the welfare of the people. They've welcomed us in a very good way. They're talking about private members' bills to look at what they can do to stimulate the private sector economy. I mean, maybe I'll stop here and say that, look, I continue to believe that the private sector is the engine of growth for the country. But I will say this, I've said it in many forums, you know, if the engine doesn't have the right type of oil, you know, surely it's just hearsay, or it's just things we talk about but we do not mean. So I think this is a great opportunity in this point, in this new Gambia, to really carry out the reforms. It is the reforms that you do that, for example, you look at corruption. We are down by a few percentage points, and we're in business. Procurement processes could be a lot. I saw Rwanda, the implementation of a digital electronic procurement system to actually bring clarity and sort of to reduce the incidence of corruption in the business procurement environment. These are the key things. Now, because if you do these things, it allows investors to have confidence.
I will interrupt you there
and invest in your country.
Mr. Njai, I will interrupt you there. Fatu has a question for you, and I will get back to you.
Hey, Mr. Njai, this is Fatu, and thank you very much for joining us. Definitely, you raised some very, very important, significant points. But don't you think this could also be, because I met a group of investors who actually wanted to invest in Gambia, and then, you know, they never showed up again. And I had to ask them, and I was like, but why didn't you guys come? And the answer was because they didn't know where to go. Like, there was nothing that's put in place. You go to this office, you're asked to come back, call this person, call that person. Like, there was no system in place. And also, could it also be the fact that many lost faith in the government? We all know that when this government force came, a lot of people have confidence in them, because the way that the Gambians went about to remove Jammeh out of power, that kind of got us a lot of international goodwill at that time. But it looks like that is all dying now. Don't you think the government also have to at least do something to make sure that they bring that confidence back?
It's a very, 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 very important point, Fatu, and I want to put my hand up that probably as a private sector, you know, we are all children of the former regime in one way or other, in the sense that everything you're saying, there was a lot of goodwill out there. And I want to believe that we also tell our story in a very poor way in terms of taking advantage of that goodwill. I'm actually landing to your question. So even us in the private sector, you know, we need to do a better job of selling the country and putting ourselves at the forefront of investment opportunities in the country. But like I said, there's no excuses here. I want to answer your point directly. We've had the opportunity to travel with the government. We were in Brussels, I was in Beijing, and I want to believe that there is still so much goodwill. But of course, you've hit the nail on the head. We have a system in place that is not yet structured enough to take in all this investment, in the sense that you are right, it's very frustrating. I can speak from personal knowledge or personal experience that even us Gambian businessmen who are on the ground, you know, we also face similar challenges. But nonetheless, there are two ways of doing things. One is to come out and just talk without any type of solution. But there's also another way that I have continued to work on, which is to engage government directly, because as I keep saying, maybe because of our experiences running businesses under a dictator, you are still not polished enough to come out and confront things on its head. But I'll be honest with you, on the ground, we are engaging government. I can give you numerous correspondences, documents. There's a National Business Council that the chamber has put in place to work with the executive. But I think it's very slow, and it needs to be sort of fast-tracked, so that at the end of the day, this frustration you are talking about doesn't. Because right now, Fatu, my biggest challenge, when I interact with government, is the issue of youth unemployment. Because if the private sector is not empowered to create these jobs by the enabling environment, allowing us to do investments quickly, getting access to land, whatever it is, licenses we're asking for, it means our young people will continue to struggle. And that is why I talked about unemployment and underemployment. I mean, underemployment is massive in the country. People are in jobs that they don't have a choice. So I think this is my challenge, because if we do not have a stimulus in the economy, like the OIC summit, I told the team that I want to believe that it's an opportunity to empower the Gambian private sector, so that at the end of the day, they carry out some of these facilities that need to be built or done. And what do we do in return? We create the jobs, we pay the taxes, because that's my biggest fear at the moment. We have a lot of young people who are not working, who potentially do not see hope. So we need to basically...
Let me interrupt you again. Let me take you back. You talked about the land. But when you talk to most people in this country, they will be like, some of those investors are not investors. They are traders. They will come and get the land and sell it and go back. Is that the case?
Like I said, I don't want to, what's the right word to use? I don't want to put everybody under one umbrella.
Yeah.
I think if you have first class institutions which the country needs to get to, it means you can decipher between, it's a global village these days, Omar.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I'm going to come and do this and come and do that, or I have done that in this country. All you need is just a simple search. Business agencies have their databases online. Private companies put out their audited accounts by law and all these things. So I think it's an excuse, in the sense that we should have good enough systems in place, good enough public officials who can decipher between a fake Papa Yusufa and a real Papa Yusufa, because I have a track record of doing what I've done. So at the end of the day, we need to make sure that it's just like the tourists. Gambia attracts very low income tourists from the rest of the world. So at times, yes, the hotels are full, but those tourists probably do not have the disposable income to spend like those tourists going to Bahamas and St. Lucia and things of that sort. So in the same vein, we need to make sure that, when people come and say, I'm going to invest, we're actually having people who have a track record and who can work with local partners. That's very important. In certain countries, I can give you Senegal, where I do business.
Yeah.
Not every Tom, Dick and Harry just comes in and says, you have access to the national cake and do what they have to do. I think as a Gambian private sector, the government understands our position, and this is something that they're working on, in the sense that you need to make sure that when private sector investors come, they have credible local partners that they can work with in the interest of the country. Because what you have many a time is fly-by-nights who just come in, take our resources, as you say, and few years down the line, you see very little on the ground. We understand business is risk. You cannot be forced to work with anybody that you don't know. But in Senegal, I mean, you don't get much without working with a Senegalese partner. I can go on and on. And I think we want to promote Made in Gambia, supporting Gambian entrepreneurs and things of that sort. And I think to do that, again, I'll go back to reforms. If you don't have these things in law, that's why we're engaging the National Assembly, so that at the end of the day, we don't just talk about things and tell the government, you are not doing this, you are not doing that. No, we want to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think, Omar, it might take time, but I want to believe that through the Chamber of Commerce, you know, our generation of Gambian entrepreneurs are saying that, yes, you know, it is up to us to prepare the ground for the future entrepreneurs, for our future generation, to make sure that, you know, the things of yesteryear are improved. The challenges are there, but quite clearly, we must bring the solutions. And maybe within a year, if we're still number 147, number 148, Omar, then you can point fingers at all of us, because it's a collective responsibility. The government, the business community, the Gambian population, to also promote Gambian businesses and support what we do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Njai, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fatu. Thank you, Omar. All the best.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That is Papa Yusuf Njai, the CEO of Unique Solution. There, we're discussing the Forbes report, 20 report, where Gambia is ranked 152 instead of 53. Just Gambia is in front of Chad when it comes to doing business, and they said Gambia is the worst country to do business in Africa. And even World Bank report also indicated, 2018 report said Gambia is 146 out of 190. So I think that's all you have today.
No, before we go, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
All right.
TAF Africa Global is pleased to launch Dalaba Housing Estate. Dalaba Housing Estate is our newest estate located on the Sukuta Jabang Road. You can buy a finished 2 or 3 bedroom house or service plots accompanied with a free fence and gate. At Dalaba Housing Estate, you get to enjoy bituminized roads, gated and fenced properties, solar street lights, water reticulation, public amenities, 1,500 fruit trees aligned in streets, and many more. Make a 40% down payment today and spread the balance conveniently for 10 years with GTBank, EcoBank, and Trust Bank. Terms and conditions apply. Wait, this is the best part. We are giving a discount on outright payments. For more information and exceptional service, please call our office line on +220 4410 233. Better still, call us on mobile or via WhatsApp on +220 376 2333 or +220 776 2333. You can also visit our website on www.tafafricahomes.com. TAF Africa Global. Our experience is global. Our focus is Africa.
Hey, what are you doing here?
I'm going to replace my AfriCell 3G SIM card.
Why use a 3G SIM card when you have a 4G phone? Replace your 3G SIM card today for the real AfriCell 4G SIM and receive 1 gigabyte of internet data for free.
Really?
Yes, get 1 gigabyte for free just by replacing your SIM card at any AfriCell outlet with no loss of contact. The cost of bundle from the 3G SIM card is the same for the 4G SIM. And guess what? With the 4G SIM card, you can also connect to the 3G network as well.
This is so cool. I'll replace my 3G SIM card right away to the real 4G SIM and receive my very own 1 gigabyte for free.
From AfriCell, it's always real and it's for free.
Where AfriCell goes, no one has the speed to follow.
Well, once again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is the Fatu Network News Review Program, and I am Fatu Kamara. And the photo of the day that is trending on Twitter and also on Facebook is the new Barrow Youth Movement. It's actually a Barrow Youth Movement that was set up here in the Gambia. And today, there's a picture that's trending. That's the one that you're looking at right now on the screen. Is a group of people. I can see Falai Balde and Sekumbalo. They are the new Barrow Youth Movement. Of course, the president is expected to be attending the UNGA meeting in America. I guess that is why they're setting up now. But the question on Twitter that everyone is talking about is, are they really youth? I think the youth bracket in Gambia is 18 to 35, right? Yeah, Ole Jackal. So do they have to be called Barrow Youth Movement, or we can find another day?
Well, I don't know. I think they just came with the name and they're saying, but these are old people.
They are old. Like somebody your age said on Twitter, Jamajak put on Twitter, if these are the youths of Gambia, then I'm not yet born.
That's
then
right.
I think it will be the same for you because you're under 25 over
see?
that. So these are the new youth. So then I am a youth as well, Omar.
I mean, because when Gambia took over, I was less than 10 years.
Yes.
So
you are also not born yet.
Yes, not born.
If they are Barrow Youth Movement, you are not born yet. But that's all in this edition of the program. Thank you all for joining us. And we would like to thank our sponsors, AfriCell, of course, the biggest in the Gambia, and of course, TAP Africa Global. They're also the biggest. I guess the biggest goes with the biggest. We are both all very big. Omar Wali, thank you too for your time, and too bad you dragged me on here like this.
Yes.
Not
so
good.
Next time we will.
Well, thank you. Until we come your way again, I am Fatou Kamara.
I am Omar Wale.
Thank you.